Hey guys, and today we are going to go over how to make it so you can throw items really far. So I am specifically in this example using a carrot on a stick. So let's put this carrot on a stick, let's right click it and see what happens. As you see this like arc pattern, depending on where I'm looking, it has different heights and the item lands there. Now the reason why you can't see the item, and there you go, kind of spoiled it, it's a grenade. So if I shoot this grenade in the air, it'll come back down and arc down and explode. Now the item has some glitchiness with it. It's actually there, as you can see by the particles, but it's kind of, sometimes you don't see the item because of just the way the game works. So yeah, so that's pretty cool. So you can throw items really far, and I have it only going like this far. I could change how far I go, like the strength, if you want to make it so you can throw them, because this is the furthest you can make it go. Let's look up about somewhere around 25 degrees. That'll give you like the furthest actually, sorry, 45 actually gives you the furthest distance if I'm using regular physics. So 45 will give me that far, so it goes all the way over there, which is pretty far. But you can get this thing to go further. As you can see, I can bounce the grenade a little bit off of walls. It doesn't like bounce. You see that? You see that? It like kind of slides. It's just because of the way that item physics work in this game. There's no bounce. It just cancels the X component of direction, like it cancels the movement in that direction. So it doesn't really bounce, but it does get a little slide going and stuff, so it still gets some cool stuff like you're actually throwing a weapon or an item. So let's go over exactly how it does this, because this might be a little complicated. This is in 1.13. There's 4 commands that I have here, but really it's all about one command called the launch. If I do this, okay, so if I actually put an item down, this is the only one we're really going to cover. The other stuff just has to do with checking for a right click, summoning an item, and then playing the launch command. So I'm going to drop that item there. If I click this button, it makes it go. It makes it go in a certain direction. Now, if I drop it like that, it will go in the direction that I dropped it in. Now, it's a little finicky because I'm not like teleporting it to me. So I can set the direction that the item is facing to that, which is 27 is this way, negative 30 is up 30. So if I do that and then I activate it, so what I did is I dropped the item and then I set its rotation to a specific number. Now I'm going to do the launch, and it actually does do, you see that little bounce? It does that launch. So as you can see, it works off of the direction it's facing. So if I face this direction and use it, then it'll launch the thing in the direction I'm facing. All right? So it's pretty cool how this works. So I had a couple different ways of doing it. The best way was a suggestion from Jespro King in the Discord, and you don't have to do. It looks like there's a lot going on here, but I have it removing scoreboards afterwards because I'm in my world, right? I'll have a download link in the description to this launch file so you can play around with it. Now I'm assuming that if you want to be able to do this, you have to know how to do functions, and I have a video covering functions in 1.13, how to make them, so I'm not going to go over that in this one. But anyway, so we got 6 scoreboards: GY, GX, GZ, GDX, GDY, GDZ. So in mathematical format, right? If I say something is x, that's its position. If I say something is dx, that means it's its change in position. So what we're going to do is we take the coordinates of the item, right? Teleport the item in the direction it's facing, right? Just a little bit. Grab those new coordinates and subtract the old coordinates from the new coordinates. So if our coordinates here was 10, 11, 12, right? Then I'm facing this direction, so now the coordinates are 11, 11, 12, right? Because I moved, say, 1 in the x direction. Then what our gx, our dx, our dy, and dz will be, how much it changed, would be 11 minus 10, 11 minus 11, and 12 minus 12, which gives me 1, 0, and 0. And this is a vector. It gives you the basics of a vector. This is called a 3 vector. It means a vector with three different quantities in it, right? There's some kind, so like I call it a 3 vector because I mean most people know a vector is an arrow with with direction and some magnitude. This is the components of a 3 vector, which means it's a vector with 3 parts. So you have the component in the x, the component in the y, the component in the z. All right. So if we can do the final coordinates minus the initial coordinates, we can get a 3 vector. And what else uses 3-vector? Well, one thing that uses 3-vector is motion. So if I do data get entity at e type equals item limit equals 1, there actually is an item. So let's look at the information for this item. So the item stores the rotation, so the way it's facing, it stores the position, and it stores the motion. And what is the motion? That's a 3-vector, just like what we did before. So if we apply, if we made this motion tag right here have 1, 0, 0, it will move with a power of 1 in the x direction. All right. Now, we also have position, so we can figure out the place that the item's at. So using data get, I can single out motion, right? So it tells me just the motion stuff, just the vector. And I can even get more specific using these brackets to pick the 0th item inside of motion for x direction. So now I can set this 0th, I can set the x direction of x component of the vector of this item to be some number like 1, like we had in the example. And I can get, so I can grab the position in the x direction, then subtract it from the previous position in the x direction, and then put that number on motion. So that's what all these commands do. So first we use execute store. This whole function is being run as the item. So anytime you see @s, it's having to do with the item. So store. So we're going to store the x component right here, position as 0, onto the scoreboard g_x. Okay? And it stores the x, the y, and the z. This 1000 means we take the x component and multiply it by 1000. This is going to give you your accuracy because you want to do 1000 so that decimal points count, right? So you don't get inaccurate numbers. So this stores, like, if your coordinate is 500, this will store 500,000. If in our example where we said the initial coordinate was 10 for the x, then this would store 10,000, okay? Then we TP the item one direction in the direction it's facing. The direction the item's facing is just the direction the item's facing. Now, this is where it gets a little, flexible, right? So what you can do if you want to make it so that anytime I drop an item, it throws it really far instead of, look how crappy that is. It's really short. That's garbage. I'm weak. But if you want to make it so regular players can throw any item further, then make it so you execute at the item, teleport the item to the player so that it faces the same direction the player's facing, all right? Then move it forward 1 in the direction it's facing. Then, since it went forward in the direction it's facing, we're going to store that on the GDX, okay? So on the other set of scoreboards. So we have the initial coordinates stored on GX, GY, GZ, and we have the final coordinates stored on DX, DY, DZ. Then we subtract the final from the initial to give us our vector components. So here would be 11 minus 10, right? Gives us 1. So then, after we get the vector coordinates on these dx, dy, dz's, then we store the vector coordinates in the entity data right here using the store result on data. Instead, before we used store result on scoreboard, now we're using store result on entity data, and we are storing it in a factor of 0.001. This is where you can play around with the strength. If I change this number from 0.001 to 0.0 to just 1, that means you're taking this number that's 10,000. This is 1,000 times bigger than it should be, right? So you have 10,000 minus 11,000 minus 10,000. In our example, we used 11 for x as the final and 10 for for x as the initial. Instead, we are doing an extra factor of 1,000 on it. So we will get 1,000 as our x component vector. So then we have to multiply it by 0.001. So 1,000 times 0.001 equals, and this is where we move it 3 over, so you just get 1. Now, if you want to make their throw even stronger than I made it, you can change this number to 0.002, right? That means it's 2 times stronger than 1. But you have to be careful with these numbers because motion doesn't exactly work the way you think it is, so just play around with what you feel is a strong enough motion in like the strength factor. I mean, you can even play around with making these values different to make it so when you throw it in a certain direction it's weaker, but I suggest making them the same. And then afterwards I just have it remove the scoreboards just to keep my world clean. If you guys are doing this in your own world, it's probably less laggy if you delete these 2 parts here because once the item gets picked up, it's going to lose the scores anyway, so you don't have to worry about the scores getting all messy. I just have it delete them because I'm already getting a lot of scoreboards on this world. This tag equals add s in it. You can remove this from the file because this has to do with throwing it using the right click. So that's pretty much everything that I really wanted to cover in this, guys. Now, one last note, we'll look at this shoot. So main checks if you right click a carrot on a stick. Shoot just creates the item for the grenade, TPs it to the player, then TPs it up a little bit because it teleports it to the player's foot, and I don't want the item coming out of the player's foot. And then it plays the launch at it. So really, it's all that happens when I right click a carrot on a stick is it summons the item, makes it face me, makes it start at my head, and then launches it. And that's it. That's pretty much it. Then if you're interested, just a quick one. During main, any item that has a tag of grenade, when its age reaches a certain number, it plays the particles for explosions. But that's about it. So really, the shoot is the cool part of this because you can throw things further than before, throw items further than before. But I suggest using particles. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.